Get Wicked Deep is not an ordinary podcast about dating. Let's Get Wicked Deep is a dating podcast where tough questions are asked and honest answers are given. It's a place to begin meaningful conversations and lasting impressions. Let's Get Wicked Deep, a healthy dating resource. Welcome to another episode of Let's Get Wicked Deep, a dating podcast. So originally I was going to talk about love triangles and kind of like what those look like, how they're created, what they're like to kind of live through, and then the sort of like the dating after. But for today's episode, which is basically tonight's episode because I am recording at night, I want to kind of talk a little bit about something different. I want to talk about just what it's like to date, I guess, like after a toxic relationship. I know this is something I kind of talk about a little bit, but the biggest thing I've found is like when I first started doing this, I didn't really know what I was doing because there really are not a lot of books out there about dating after toxic relationship, like what to expect. There's so many books out there about what a toxic relationship is, how to get out of one ish, like, all this stuff. But I didn't really find personally a lot of books about living through a toxic relationship and like what that looked like. So I wrote my first book. And then when I started dating after this toxic relationship, I wrote my second book because one night I was up and I was Googling, how do you date after a toxic relationship? Like, what does that look like? What can I expect? Nothing. Crickets. There was nothing out there about how to do this, like a how to, like a manual of like different things you will go through and different things you'll experience. When we're in our toxic relationships, for the most part, we all experience like the same sort of things: the highs, the lows, the love bombing, the manipulating, the gaslighting, blah, 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 the cheating, then this, that. The only thing that's different about these toxic relationships that we all go through is the recovery after. And as we all know, not a lot of people know how to recover after a toxic relationship because they get so caught up in, oh, I was this, victim and blah, blah, blah. So for me, after getting out, I got into recovery program because when I got out of that toxic relationship, I also realized I was toxic and I knew I needed help. I remember the day I realized I needed help. I was laying on my bedroom floor, and the toxic ex I had just done this whirlwind of throwing everything around and flipping over furniture and screaming at me and getting in my face and taking all his stuff and leaving. And it was horrifying. And that was the last time he packed his stuff and left. And I remember after he was gone, I felt like everything was gone. I didn't know how to put one foot in front of the other. My house was completely trashed. I was completely trashed, meaning mentally, physically, emotionally drained, confused, all of it. And I remember laying on the floor in my bedroom in the house I lived at the time and saying to myself, you need help. Like, not like someone come help me and take care of me because I just went through this physical thing, but you need help, meaning something's not right with you. You got to get some like actual help. And after that, I got into um, my recovery program a little bit after that and started working that program. So when I did start dating again, I thought it would be different. Like, I started dating while I was in recovery, which I do not recommend because you're still kind of fucked up. But it wasn't so when I'm gonna talk about the dating in this, episode, I'm gonna be talking about the healthy dating. So when I started healthy dating, I thought I was fixed. I thought I'm cured. I thought, "I'm good. I got this. I know my worth. I worked on myself. I'm good." And it turns out it wasn't until my first actual relationship that I realized there was a lot more to it than the first half. Yeah, like the first half. Like I was able to recover and heal from a lot of stuff for myself, like my codependency, my narcissism, my toxic traits. And I'll tell you, I worked really hard on this, and was really proud of myself. But when I got into something that was a little bit more consistent, things started coming out that I didn't expect because I had been cheated on. And I know I've talked about this a few times. I didn't really heal from that because I didn't think I had to, because when he cheated, I didn't know about it until it was later. I knew about the stuff that happened within the love triangle, which the love triangle, I guess maybe I will be talking a little bit about that. Honestly, was probably the biggest thing that fucked me up, and didn't realize it at the time, because when we were in that relationship, it kind of went from like him moving out to the very next day, hey, we're still like doing this, but I'm just going to live here and we're going to work on this. So I thought we were working on it, but I didn't realize at the time he had moved in with somebody else. So he was living a double life in a sense. And I didn't realize this for a while. And then when I did, and it turned into a full on love triangle, what had happened for me was I had never wrapped my mind around the idea that we were broken up and that he was with someone else. He portrayed it as we were together and she was in the way. And a lot of the stuff that he would say to me about her was he felt bad for her because she didn't have any friends and she didn't have any money and he had to move her in and all these different things. So he continued this double life. She knew about it to a degree. I knew about it probably to a degree. And it was this back and forth, full on love triangle where a few times she called to get like information, where she would leave every weekend because I guess she wasn't fit to live with her daughter. So her mom had custody or something. So she would leave on the weekend. And when she left, he would come to my house and spend the weekends with me. And I didn't look at this and say, "Oh wow, this is like so wrong. This is like what's going on," until after it was over. I mean, it was celebrating, you know, birthdays over there, birthdays over here, this, that, Valentine's Day, all of it. It was all going on at the same time. But what I didn't realize until much, much later after this, because in the middle of this, I thought I would think to myself, well, this is who I'm supposed to be with because we were engaged, we were together. You're just, a side effect of whoever he is. And I didn't really think much of it. So I didn't feel bad about it. Still don't feel bad about it. But what I do feel bad about is my role in the decisions that I made, where I'm disappointed like in myself, because at the time I felt, like I said, like this was just kind of rolling around. Um, but outside of that, after full on recovery, after being in a relationship that I've been in that's been consistent, I realized that I was the other woman. And how that kind of fucked me up was, in something healthier, I'm now seeing, like I saw the sides where, he like cheated or whatever. Then I was on the other side where he would be in the car with me and she would be screaming on the phone about me and saying, "I know you're still seeing her, blah, blah, blah," while he had his hand on my knee and saying, "I haven't talked to her in such a long time. I don't know what you're talking about." And then me giving him something and him leaving it out on display in his house for her to see, almost like a trophy. And he would tell me about it. So if I gave him hand towels and she used the hand towels, he would be like, haha, you know, I'm tricking her. So now that stuff comes right back on you, where it's like, oh, wait, now that I know what both of these sides look like, is this happening to me? Which then makes you overthink and question, to a degree, like, wait, is this person doing like the same thing? How am I going to know if this person is doing the same thing? I'm never going to know. And this is where I had to like deal with certain things. So I had a conversation with Kama and I'm like, damn it, are you ever going to be done with me? And it's a really tough thing to go through these relationships and have these things happen on the other side and not realize that you're suffering through it. So it's been a little bit of a struggle, and it's also a little bit of a struggle because you have been through this like toxic traumatic thing where your counterpart hasn't. And your counterpart is like, yeah, I don't understand all this. So moving on to a different subject, you know? And it's really difficult because trying to explain it and saying it out loud, you sound like an idiot to a degree. And the other person is like, yes, still do not compute, don't know how to handle all of this. So it can be a little bit tricky, and you to a degree can't expect someone to be like, hey, yeah, like let me pick up your pieces for you. And it's hard to know like where the line is. Like where is that line of saying to someone, hey, I could really help. Yeah, I could really use your help to get through this situation versus this is really difficult for me and I need you to fix it. So, it's, and people will hear kind of what they want to hear because of their own life experiences, you know? So it's been a little bit of a tricky situation. So these are things that you kind of like go through once you're in something more consistent, something that is like around every day, learning that if someone has a critique or whatever, it's not because they're trying to pick a fight with you so they can leave and go be with their girlfriend on the side. It's just because they want to make you better. But it's really difficult to live through this stuff as you're learning like who you are, and that not everyone is so toxic and so abusive. For me, I'm finding difficulty with communicating some things that I need because for as long as I can remember, if I needed things, it was usually met with um like a negative response. So I was in a sense conditioned to like not ask for the physical things I need, whether it's a hug or reassurance or I understanding or empathy, because those things, like some of the basic some of the basic life needs were met when I was a kid, but then like the emotional needs were never met. So that turned me into a big pile of ice, but constantly melting because I really wanted it. Like I was so hardened that I was mean to people, but really just wanted like a hug, like to say, hey, it's going to be okay. And for me, that's what kind of gets me through. But even now at this age of 97, it's so difficult to say to somebody, these are the things I need because I've met with so much rejection. And it sucks, dude. It sucks. It's not easy. It's not fun. It's something that I'm trying to like say and like get my in like needs met, those like kind of emotional needs or whatever met, without the fear of being rejected. So recently um I did say, hey, this is what I need, and I got it. It was returned to me. There wasn't a name calling, there wasn't yelling, there wasn't anything. But for me, I sometimes feel like I want to feel like more significant. So when we need some of our basic life needs met, our brain wants us to get those needs met super, super, super quick. And even if that looks like a fight, your brain doesn't care. As soon as you're getting what you quote unquote think you need, your brain like is like, okay, I'm cool. So when you're looking for, say, significance and you're not getting it, the quickest way our brain tells us to get it is to, hey, start a fight. Text him 17 times. He'll get it. He'll respond to that, you know? And then when you get the response that says, "Oh my god, what is wrong with you?" All of a sudden that need is met because you're getting that response. And your brain is like, "Yeah, we're good now." And literally, brain, we are not good because now we have a huge fight on our hands. So it's really difficult to learn how to control every aspect of yourself full time. It's impossible. I think some people can do it. I don't know that people can do it. I just lied. I don't know why I just said that. I don't know how people can do that. I don't know if people can keep their emotions in check all the time and always be level-headed and, this, that, and the other thing without like having a meltdown behind the scenes. And when you're invested in an emotional romantic relationship, it's different from work because you love that person, and at the same time you want to kill that person. When you're at work, you don't have those emotional attachments to your boss or to your coworker or to anybody working in your office. You're just like, I got to deal with this motherfucker, and then I get to punch out of here at friggin' 5 o'clock or whatever. But when you're in a romantic relationship where you have actual feelings and you have these emotions and you love this person, it's very different. You can't always be in total 100% control of your emotions. You just can't. And it's hard to accept that you're not perfect and that it's going to be difficult for you to do that. So I, you know, personally have met someone who's a little bit more stoic, which is difficult for me because I am not stoic. And it's hard because I like to see the affection in the eyes and the oh blah blah and the softness, and I've met someone that doesn't have that. So for me, I'm trying to figure out really out like a solid way to get my like emotional needs met that I would like from another person, hugs and etc. But also, think of like what this person's needs are, what makes him comfortable versus like uncomfortable. And it's not easy to do when you're trying to take care of your stuff and then try to know what the other person may be comfortable with and may not be comfortable with. And I'm more of a caregiver, so I care about other people's feelings. So when I do put like a request in for what I might need, I do think, how is this going to make him feel? How is this going to affect him and like what he's comfortable with? And on the flip side of that, that's not always thought of in on my end, and that's hard for me to grasp. It's like, wait a minute, I'm thinking about your needs. How come you're not thinking about how that's gonna make me feel? Because we're two completely different people, and it can be very, very difficult because it's just not easy sometimes. So I read books and I take classes for my job. But fortunately for me, the classes I take for my job help me in relationships. So I'm always learning. So sometimes when I'm having an issue with my romantic counterpart, I will specifically take a class on what I feel we're going through so I can learn better how to do it. Am I like foolproof with it? No. He's like my guinea pig. Not all the time, but sometimes. And sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. And sometimes I do, oh man, really fucked up shit. And I think to myself, oh my God, what are you doing right now? Because I can't always control how I feel. And it's tough because I'm so hard on myself. And I felt like, because I've been through my recovery, and I even talked to my sponsor today about certain things I'm going through and certain things that I'm feeling, because having like an addiction to, pills and whatever, sometimes you go through things and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, and you do your best to not go back on that, which I've been doing amazing with. But like today was a rough day for me, and I ended up having a conversation with her. So still going through the recovery steps and trying to figure out, how to live this life and care about someone else's feelings, but then care about yours. It's not always easy. So dating after a toxic relationship isn't the easiest thing. And the biggest thing that has helped me is the recovery part of it, because I'm not in the same sort of toxic loop that I was in for so many years. I have disappointed myself with certain things I didn't want to do, but the fact that I can acknowledge it and admit it and say, okay, these are things I need to work on and these are the things, I need to ask for, that helps. I'm never going to be perfect. So I don't know, if you're going to date after a toxic relationship, I think it's a really good idea, but I also think it's a great idea to realize that there are some things you're going to go through that you didn't really realize you had to recover from until you're in the heat of the moment, until you're in the throes of it. And if your counterpart doesn't always understand that, it takes a while for them to understand it. It's going to take them a very long time for them to understand that you've been through some stuff and it's not easy to heal from entirely. So it's always a work in progress. And my biggest thing is, I don't want to hurt like someone that I love. And the fact that, I've done that, it kills me, and it makes me like even like harder on myself, because I have this idea that I have to be perfect, because Kelly, you went through recovery, you should be perfect. And I have to learn to accept the fact that I'm not perfect. I am going to hurt people and it's not going to be intentional. And I can do the best that I can, like, to clean up the messes that I've made. And I don't know that I'll always be able to. I know that sometimes we mess up to the point where there's no going back. And if that's the case, then you have to accept it and learn from it, heal from it, and move on. It's easier said than done, obviously, but sometimes we do things and we fuck it up and there's no coming back. And that's just part of the process, and learning to not be so hard on yourself. So just know that when you do start dating, it is going to be fun. It's going to be amazing. And you're probably going to meet some amazing people. It may not always work out. You may fuck things up, but you're always going to be okay. You're always going to be okay as long as you have that home base, as long as you love yourself a little bit more than you love everyone else, you're going to be okay. When you fuck up, dude, apologize. When you make a mistake, try to fix it. When someone's not being heard, try to listen to them. Just do the very best you can and learn from all the stuff that you've been through. And if something doesn't feel good, it's okay to leave. It's okay to leave. It's not going to be a bad thing. Also, you're probably not going to get yelled at as much as you think you are. I don't get yelled at very much at all. Except for by myself. I always yell at myself. I yelled at myself today. But you're not going to get yelled at. You're not going to get hit. You're not going to be called names. That's not going to happen. So, put your best foot forward and do the very best you can. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of Let's Get Wicked Deep, a dating podcast. To find out more information about anything you heard on today's show, please check out bebravecoaching.org.